Hi, I'm Dr. Stan Steindl. Welcome to Compassion in a T-Shirt, in session with Natali Gumiy. Natali is a psychologist in Buenos Aires in Argentina, working as a therapist, supervisor, trainer, researcher, especially in the areas of compassion-focused therapy and compassionate mind training. She's doing some amazing work in schools and with teachers, as well as bringing CFT to health practitioners throughout Argentina. I really do hope you enjoy my conversation in session with my friend Natali Gumiy. Well, welcome, Natali Gumiy, to Compassion in a T-Shirt in session. It's dazzling to me, really, to think that, I can get to speak with you, all the way from here in Australia over to Argentina. I mean, the countries are sort of, I was thinking they're close on the alphabet, but they're a long way apart when it comes to, on the planet. So I'm very, very grateful that you could give up your evening to have a chat. How are you this evening? How are things your end?
Hi, Stan. Thank you for your invitation. I'm really feel very grateful and honored to participate on Compassion and T-Shirt and to give the opportunity to hear voices from all around the world. Yeah. Working with CFT or compassion, and meet you for the first time face to face.
Yeah.
And my evening now is very hot here in Buenos Aires, and it's ending the week, so I'm just like a little bit tired, but very energetic with this conversation, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Stan. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's 8 p.m. over there, and 9 a.m. over here. So I'm just at the start of my day, and you're kind of at the end. But no, it's just one of the gifts of the modern world, isn't it? Really, to be able to have friends and colleagues, far afield, and to get to collaborate. One of the things that we're kind of both involved with at the moment is this fairly large multinational research project that's headed up by Dr. Marcela Matos in Portugal. And so that's been a fascinating project as well, because it's really bringing people from all over the world together to look at compassion and self-compassion, and during this COVID pandemic. So I think there's all these little touch points for us. It's we get to kind of meet and work together and interact. It really is a wonderful gift. So, but to get started, I guess I was very interested to hear myself, but also for the listeners, I guess, to hear a little bit about you and perhaps your life, maybe generally, or your work, what sorts of things you've been doing, what excites you, or that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about the Natali story.
Okay, first of all, I want to share with you that I'm very curious. I'm a curious person. So what excites me, what excites me is the work with human beings. The work with suffering, the work with people, the work with all kinds of human beings. Like I used to say that my profession is to be a psychologist, but I work with human beings. So that excites me a lot and bring me a lot of feedback in my work. This motivation and these motives and motivation. So as I said, I'm curious in my profession and I'm curious in life. So I'm always searching around things that helps relieve my pain, to live a life more aligned with my values, with what motivates me, what are my motivations, and tools working from the body, tools working from the mind and the setting with other people. And I excite me to travel, and I'm really excited to travel sometimes to Australia, maybe when it's finished.
We would love to have you. That would be
and
great.
sharing time and knowing the history of others too.
Yes, yeah, curiosity.
Yes.
That's kind of one of your real kind of qualities and values, even, you know, just that curiosity about human beings and the human experience and yourself, and sort of curious to notice as things arise in you and in others, and especially, you know, suffering. I was talking to a client recently, and they made this very interesting shift from a very anxious kind of what if type thinking pattern to a sort of a curious what next type thinking pattern. And it was just this very interesting shift from fearful imagining to curiosity, and it's powerful stuff.
Yes, true. And that's give to me, and I used to work in this path with my clients. It's relief a lot to know that you can see this pattern and make another thing from your life, for your life. Like know that I recently I was with a client, and we are talking about this, and he told me like, oh, I think that I have control of my suffering. And I say, wait, are you really having control? Or maybe you are seeing that life, such a life, this is life, and shit happens, and you can see and you have perspective of that, but you are not the captain of that boat. You only see sailing there. No, sorry for my English, Stan.
I appreciate the way that you're describing that. You know, that we do have this sort of need sometimes for control, don't we? We want to control things and control the things that are happening around us, or control the things that are happening within us, as if we should be able to. And then when we don't or can't, then up comes the next layer, which is this self-criticism and frustration itself, and we start to attack ourselves. And curiosity, now that's really interesting, because on the one hand, curiosity is a nice antidote to fearful imagining and worrying and so on. But curiosity is also a very nice antidote to this need for control and the sort of frustration or self-criticism around the reality, actually, that we can't.
We can't. Yes, we can't. But it seems for us, like humans, if we don't know what to do with that, we think that we can control or we cannot control. So we are like going in these two ways, and that's right. Suffers a lot.
Yes, yeah, the need to control, and then the despair that we can't. That's sort of, I think, what you're saying there, that we end up in these two extremes. And it's that's for me always the beauty of that CFT saying, you know, like, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. It's trying to find that sweet spot, isn't it, in between sort of demand and expectation and blame versus despair and giving up or just being indifferent to suffering.
Yes, that phrase that Paul always repeat, like, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility, is like a very big door in the relation therapy, in the work with clients, with persons, with humans. Like
Yes.
We are always thinking that this is our fault.
Yes.
This is my fault. These thoughts, these feelings, these behaviors. No.
I like the way you describe that. It is a door. In some ways, it's one of the very early doors in therapy, isn't it? When that opens up to people, that sense of it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. I mean, sometimes, well, it can be a very emotional moment, actually, and enormous feeling is expressed, relief is experienced, all sorts of things can happen as that first or early door opens. So what is your current work and practice? You know, what you have that set up there?
Yes, I work in private practice. I used to work with anxiety and depression. I'm really interested in learn more to work with trauma. I'm really interested in read more about Deborah Lee work. So, and participate in some workshop, like crossing fingers to go to the conference this year or maybe the other one and met in person. I don't know why, but I work in private practice, as I said. And I used to work in education too. Like I said, my curiosity is like part of Natali, so I'm curious in the private practice, in education. I used to work with parents too. I start my work in psychology with kids, kids with disabilities, and I learned a lot of work with families. And to work with an integrative framework, like holistic framework, no? Because when you work with kids with disabilities, you have to have all the picture, the big picture, not only the behaviors, no? So in that work, I learned a lot, and then I started with the work with adults and with adolescents. I'm really passionate this time with adolescents. The pandemic was the worst thing for adolescents, no? For the big ones, and for adolescents and kids was terrible.
What is the Motivación Compassion or
okay, Motivación Compasiva. Yes, it's a very my heart. It's my heart. It's my heart.
Right.
And we have this project with two colleagues, Lorena, it's a neurologist, and Maria, that is a psychologist too. And we are working around with health professionals, but starting the new steps on CFT. Like here, CFT in Argentina is starting to go to spreading.
Yes.
And we have some study groups, so they came and we start reading, practice, like a supervision, like a peer supervision group with teachings, no? With teachings about the books and the workshops, and we are working on that way. And this year we have I don't know the word in English, but this diplomado, like is an international diplomado where Russell was invited.
Would it be
we
diploma?
Have some maybe diploma.
Like a certificate?
Yes. No. Like the name of the course, diploma. It's like a master,
master. Yeah. So yes, you and your colleagues are really trying to spread the word of CFT in particular, and develop. You've got the peer sort of groups, the peer supervision groups, by the sounds of it. You've got some the diploma perhaps, or some training that people can do,
Right.
and certain big names maybe coming to teach, about CFT and that sort of thing. And so, I did get that sense that you have your private practice and you're sort of working with people, with humans, and trying to be helpful there. And then you've got this sort of association that you've developed that is really kind of advocating for, CFT in Argentina.
And I have this project in education with another colleagues where we train teachers how to work, how to develop this responsibility for the well-being of them. And this a project in education that calls Presencia, like presence in education. We work with neuroscience, with mindfulness, with compassion, with social awareness, with nature, with planet. We have a program where the teachers goes in and they train in an individual change. And then when they learn the teachings and the practice and the training of this individual change, they have the part of the social change. So they work around how to work in the school like an institution, and how this can be changed like an ecosystem where everyone have this kind of notion of we are in an interbeing, that we are in a human community. Yes, and we know how our brains work sometimes, but we can't stop, breathe, and then be in contact with others. So that program is really amazing too.
Yes, that does sound amazing. Presence in education. I mean, that's such a sort of, really sums it up, doesn't it? How do we bring ourselves to be present there, and to, first of all, by the sounds of it, teachers learning to bring mindfulness and compassion and so on to themselves, and then gradually to create something in a more social, relational, interpersonal way with, I guess, students and each other, and perhaps the school community. I mean, the power of being able to introduce all of that into the education system, and maybe even, it filters in with the children, and they grow up with a sense of mindfulness and compassion and what it all is, and I mean, that's such a useful kind of introduction to being human. I mean, it's good to have maths and English or languages, I guess, for you, and science and whatever. But actually, to learn mindfulness and compassion, or to have an environment in which that's felt and experienced, from a young age, seems really, really important. Where did you come across compassion and self-compassion? Is this something that's always been there for you, even as a child or adolescent, or is it something that you've really discovered later on and through your work? Or
that's a very good question, Stan. I think that, I don't know if in English is the same metaphor, but here we have like a phrase that said, when I see back with the Monday newspaper, it was easy now to see that part of my life with the Monday newsletter, but now I can share with you that I think that yes, compassion was always in my life. The other day I was talking with a colleague, and one of these colleagues where I work with Presencia program in education, and I said, "Oh, when I've been 8 years old, I was working in a project like saving the planet and all the animals, and heal the world was like my song of every day. Like every time I heard it, like I start to cry. Like it's very deeper for me, that song, like the all the song. And I think yes, then compassion was always there, but I didn't have a easy kid and adolescent life with my parents, and I think that I learned to be threatened, so there wasn't space to be compassion. Like it was like you said me, like I was in fantasy, imagine that there is another opportunity, there is another way to live, but in really my life it wasn't true. So I was confused about my fantasy or maybe my wishes and my experience in the real life. So I grow, and I study another professions that I didn't finish because I always want to be a psychologist, and that was a problem in my family. Like, no, you must be a lawyer. You must. No? So I walk on that path until one time I said, no, stop. I really want to do another thing. So I start my steps in psychology, studying psychoanalysis and Gestalt, and there was a time like, no, I need to make the miss about what are my feelings and how I want to be in this world and my profession. So that was the stop that I did, and I started to look, search, and I met with mindfulness. Mindfulness was the first door. So I started to study and practice mindfulness, and I started to work on mindfulness, and I started to practice self-compassion. And I experienced that graph back, like,
oh yes,
whoa, this calls my attention. So what's happened here? What's happening here? And looking inside my own suffering, I discovered how to relive with compassion. And that make me study more, practice more, participate in retreats, and being there, sitting with my own suffering.
Yeah, there's. It really does sound like there's always been this part of you that feels, very connected with helping and healing, and the compassion motive was always there. I presume you never gave it that sort of a name or something. It was much more a felt sense that you were really touched by things like heal the world. That really resonated for you, and you felt it. And at the very same time, a lot of your early life was threat system activated. You were there was threat around, and in some ways, you became very aware too of suffering, in a sense, and so you had this vision of really what you wanted to do in the world, and then you had this reality of getting through life in a way that was trying to sort of seek safety in amongst all of that, and yet, there it was. It just kept niggling away, like you were going to be the lawyer sort of route path in life, and then but these compassionate motives just kept tapping you on the shoulder. Don't forget about me, sort of a thing. And eventually, you absolutely made a big call, and it takes a risk, doesn't it, sometimes to live a compassionate life. You were taking a bit of a risk there, and you got into it.
It's a daily work, no, Stan? It's a daily work, because that threatened memories always are back, or sometimes, like before this meeting, like, Natali, you're English. No, these memories, these inner critic, this shame, and all these things that are on me, but compassion made me learn how to listen them with a kinder voice. Like, they're there, but I can do what I can do. I can do my best. Not blocked by the voices. No.
Yes, it's not unfortunately in a way, but I guess in some ways it's good. Like we're never rid of those memories. We never they never disappear, and the legacy of those experiences just can remain. It's how we learn to relate to those memories or relate to those feelings when they pop up, and that was that you mentioned backdraft as well. That as you developed that self-compassionate motive and started to approach those feelings of suffering and the memories, up it comes, the emotion, I remember that too, being at my first mindful self-compassion retreat, and the very powerful feelings that come up, and yet gradually, bit by bit, we just shift a little bit the way that we might relate to those parts of ourselves.
Yes, I always say that experience are portals, no? Portals.
Important?
No, portals, like not doors, but that special, like portals.
Yes.
No? Yes?
Yeah.
You must be in if you want to relive, no? You don't must, but it's good to be there, no?
Yeah. Yes, these things are, in a way, opportunities to practice self-compassion, and when we get to do that and we learn and grow, then we really can start to flourish too, beyond all of that, which you're certainly doing. You've become more focused on compassion focused therapy as the approach. Where did that start for you?
Maybe 6 years ago. When I was practicing and studying mindfulness and searching more about compassion, about self, the first contact was Christine Neff, no, the mindful self-compassion program and the practices, no. And then I met with Paul in the literature with Paul. I met in the literature with Paul.
Right.
And I was fascinated with this evolutionary model and how the brains work. And this is not your fault, but this is your responsibility. And what can I do with this? No? And I fell in love. Like, okay, this is where I want to go. Like, and I started to read. And in 2018, I went to the training in New York, in Union Arts, where I think Dennis TShirt organized
the first
training.
Compassion Summit.
Yes, the first Compassion Summit in New York. And I have the opportunity to be there and to share with all the group and know Paul face to face. And then I started to study more and started to practice and started to supervise by Paul too, and training with Dennis too, the trainings that Dennis and Laura have online, and that's here and still having now. And then we invite Paul to make some workshops here in Argentina. And I'm still deeper in more in compassion focused therapy. Like I think that the model, like the framework of CFT, is very complete. You have neuroscience, you have psychodynamic, evolutionary, psychology, Buddhism.
Yes.
But for me, it's a very mixed, very interesting mix to work with human beings. Like,
yes, I think you and I have a very similar path to all of this. My first exposure was mindful self-compassion as well, and then discovered Paul Gilbert, and I agree, it's that's his genius, isn't it? Is being able to pull together so many areas of theory and thought and practice and wisdom, and you know, that feels very, very appealing for me too. It taps into different areas of, I guess, my brain in a way, or how I might think and use all of that. What's it like in Argentina when you present the model? You know, do you find that people receive it well? Are there challenges there? Do you notice any cultural or contextual sorts of adaptations that you need to make?
I remember one workshop I made with my colleague Lorena 2 years ago. 2 years ago, because last year, I don't know what happened last year, but 2 years ago, with a group of teachers from school. And we gave the definition of compassion, like suffering. What? Suffering? What are you talking about? This is not a workshop to talk about suffering. No, he started to talk these things.
Yeah.
And these things happens, like, and I think that like this is something that happened all around the world. Like, I don't know in other countries, but talking about compassion is difficult. No, it's difficult for someone that relate compassion from religion, like it's pity, like it's weak. So what are you trying to train me on? What, on vulnerability? Yes. That is another portal, no? Vulnerability.
Yeah,
it's another door to start to work. But yes, we have some challenge with the word compassion. Yes. But it's getting more and more soft, the relation with the word and what we want to share with CFT model. And there's a couple of discussions, like if it is or if it's not third wave. And here in Argentina, it's a lot of work in third wave therapies, context therapy, like ACT, DBT. And so there's a little bit of discussion of CFT out of the third way, and the third way is like, oh yes, this is really helpful now, the third way, like CFT have dynamic psychology. And there's a big kind of discussions are going around, but maybe we have a lot of work to do spreading CFT here in Latin America, cultural and in our culture. And nothing with this competition mentality, this kind of competition in psychology too.
Yes.
No?
I always find that, quite hilarious that here we are, a whole bunch of people trying to be sort of helpful, and yet even we get caught up in the tribalism, and we form groups and we sort of try to defend territory. Yeah. It is, you're right, it is this competitive motive or motivation, that really can kick in. And also the words can be tricky for people, just the word compassion. And then words like empathy versus sympathy. Sometimes I get a little bit of pushback there too, that empathy is good, but sympathy is not good in the context of therapy, for example. And so, the words and how people define these words for themselves. And compassion really comes along with some sort of baggage there almost.
No, that I have some challenge in my private practice with clients, like, okay, this kind of psychoeducation it's good. It's very useful to know how my brain functions and how my reactions are aligned with this brain that is having these reactions, but how can I do it? 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 Like, okay, how can I do it? No, the process is difficult for me. It's a challenge in my practice work, I don't know if it happened something similar for you, Stan, but like, okay, give me the resolution, give me the results. No, yes, I know how this machine is working and how my emotions are going around.
Yeah.
But give me a solution. No,
it's very, very similar, and the sort of the dilemma of moving from insight to action. Understanding the human brain and how it's working, and the nature of suffering, and the compassionate motivation, and that we can develop that insight and understanding and awareness and so on. And then it's sort of, what to do, how do I put this into practice? Tell me what will fix me. Actually, it's interesting. We often, that's a very similar challenge, I guess, for us as well, is to sort of be able to think about, moving from the fixing and to the self-relating, and how one might sort of relate to oneself and so on. Do you move through things like the well, I suspect you do, the cultivating the compassionate self, working with the multiple selves, and so on? How do you find that going with people?
Multiple selves, it's really, really very an exercise that always moves a lot of emotions, like, oh my God, no, like it's like a revelation for the patient, for the clients, that work. And the functional analysis of the inner creative too, no, like why they found that there is an emotion, moving action. Yes, I have some challenge with multiple selves, like when I did sometimes with some clients, they told me like, I've been a lot of days movilizada, how do you say, like with a lot of emotion here in my chest, like I stayed some days with this exercise.
Yes.
But it's good. It's good to know that these all parts are part of me too. Like the big three. These big three are part of me. No?
Yes.
and
yeah,
what thoughts have everyone, and just sadness and anger. It's a revelation. I don't know if I'm saying the right word. Like it's like with an apple goes down from the tree, like,
yeah.
oh, no.
Yes, it is. It is a revelation. It is like that moment when the apple falls down from the tree, and we suddenly, Newton suddenly realizes there's such a thing as gravity, and for the people we're working with, those set pieces create, yes, very powerful revelations. Okay, I see. There are the big three. There is the angry self and anxious self and sad self, and I can sort of see that now, and I can step back and observe and become aware of those things interplaying, and maybe I can even bring this compassionate part of me to the conversation as well. So it's yes, it's very powerful stuff, and those set pieces in CFT, like the functional analysis of self-criticism, yeah, those set pieces really seem to have a powerful effect as well.
Yes, and with the three systems, it's another revelation too. But sometimes I have this challenge that people stay very mental with the three cycles, no? Like, oh, I'm green, I'm red, I'm blue today. That's okay. It's part of knowing what's happened inside me and in my thoughts and in my emotions. But I like to work more with the multiple selves, like
I agree. Getting
commit
active.
more the body, no?
Yeah.
Commit more the body and the mind and the body, and settle and grounding and
yeah, exactly. The sort of experiencing it in the body, experiencing it in the moment, and the various revelations and insights, but also then the practices that hopefully people feel motivated to try at home and to keep practicing with those things. That's often another challenge for me is sort of the homework and home practice. So it's, yeah, but when people really feel it, it can feel quite convincing for them, I think, and then they're much more likely to sort of try these things and practice them at home as well. So as you know, I was wanting to ask you today a little bit about your 3 tips. This is the section where I'm just sort of inviting people to think about, 3 things that you might suggest to others who are beginning or somewhere along the journey of compassion and self-compassion. And I mean, you've had this inspiring journey so far. I know you are still on the journey, but so given all of your experiences and learning and application and action around compassion and self-compassion, what might you say? What might be three tips for people, on their journey?
First of all, I think that the first step is to pause, make a stop with all the shit that is happening in the mind and with these emotions going around. Make a pause, stop, look inside. No, when we pause, we need some help too. No, go and look for help, but we have a tricky mind, so we need to pause. We have a tricky mind, we have to pause. It's necessary to pause to know how this tricky mind is telling us a story that is not true. So no, it's true, but it's not necessary to act this story. And when we can stop and we can hear what is happening inside, try to develop this kindness. And there's ways to be friend with our experience, to develop acceptance to our suffering, to our experience, to our suffering, being compassionate with ourselves and training on that, practicing that, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yes, no, that's beautiful. That really, the first step is about just slowing down or pausing, and stopping, and even that step's not necessarily as easy as it sounds, is it? But it's this kind of first step to pause, and then the next step really is to look inside, to notice, to listen to what is happening inside, to see or hear or listen to all of that, and to really kind of become something of an observer of our tricky minds. And then the third bit is about, I think, developing kindness, but certainly, trying different ways to respond to what's going on in there, and especially different ways to respond to our suffering. Compassion, it's not easy. It's not kind of, something we can necessarily do or change quickly. It's an ongoing process, training the mind, practicing the strategies, practicing the things, the imagery and the work that we're doing, and gradually it'll come.
Exactly. You hear me so good.
Great. Excellent.
So you make the excellent translation.
Good. No. Well, I absolutely appreciate you coming on to talk. I know that it can activate the anxious self to sort of talk in another language, a language that's not your first language. And well, to be frank, you've done a beautiful job of it. Actually, it's been really wonderful, and it's important, I think, for us to hear what everyone's doing. The fact that so much is happening now in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, that you and your colleagues are doing all this work, and that the people are benefiting from all of that. So I really appreciate you kind of coming on and doing all of this. If people are wanting to engage with you, or to be in contact, or to sort of get involved even, are there certain ways that you can be contacted?
Yes, we have a web page that calls Motivación Compasiva, Compasiva. And we have an email where we can be in touch, like motivacioncompasiva.com.
Beautiful. Okay, I will get the website and the email and put it in the description of the YouTube.
You want to chat it here?
I'll get it off you after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the website. Other ways to connect?
Email, and we have the Facebook and social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, social media.
You're across
Motivación Compasiva. Yes. So my puppy.
I can hear your dog. Mine is still happily sleeping. But that's great. Okay, so I'll include some of those things in the description. So Natali, thank you very much for coming and having this conversation. I know it's now getting late to your end, perhaps, but yeah, I really have well, I've just loved the chance to get to meet you online here and to have a conversation and to hear about all your wonderful work. So thank you.
Stan, thank you very much. I really felt that you heard me all across this hour, and you can catch my ideas, and you made a perfect translation in an excellent English. So thank you very much for your invitation, and nice meeting you. Really, really nice meeting you.
Lovely to
crossing fingers to meet each other in Scotland.
Scotland, yes. Well, we shall see. All right, good. Thanks, Natali. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.